Tom Cruise is back as Ethan Hunt for one final mission. This is the last one, right?
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is the 8th installment in the Mission Impossible film series, directed by Christopher McQuarrie from a screenplay that he co-wrote with Eric Jendresen. It functions as a direct sequel to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, which I find particularly funny because they removed the part 1 from Dead Reckoning and changed the title of this movie completely, but they really do function as a part 1 and part 2, as two pieces of a whole. This film picks up 2 months after the events of Dead Reckoning, with Ethan Hunt and the IMF team racing against time to find the Entity, which is a rogue artificial intelligence that can destroy mankind, as they do. They run into many complications along the way, including the US government, as well as Gabriel, a man who has haunted Ethan for decades. The Final Reckoning is a film that is sure to please longtime fans of the franchise, as it is full of all the tropes that people have come to expect from a Mission Impossible film: a fun cast of characters, majestically filmed action sequences, and death-defying stunts for star Tom Cruise. And listen, I really do have to applaud Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, as these two continue to go above and beyond, with Cruz specifically pushing himself further and further just for our visual enjoyment, and maybe because he's possibly kind of crazy. Because Mr. Movies is back, and Tom Cruise really is in top form here, giving an emotional, intense, and physical performance. Watching this man continue to risk life and limb in the name of cinema is really something to see, and this film has no shortage of Cruise action sequences. Because The Final Reckoning is a love letter to Mission Impossible, to Cruz, and to the character of Ethan Hunt, in a way that feels very nostalgic, but sometimes super overindulgent. One of the biggest problems with this film is the almost obsessive way it tries to tie everything together to previous films, with some that do little to enhance the story and are there simply for connective tissue that really took me out of the movie at times. But Ethan Hunt is only as good as his team, and this film mixes some fan-favorite franchise players like Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, who in particular gives a fantastic performance as Luther. Actually, this film is almost flooded with new actors. You have Nick Offerman, Hannah Waddingham, Tremel Tillman, Katie O'Brien. The list goes on. And while there's no lack of star power, the new additions work really well, and it is clear everyone's having a lot of fun bringing these characters to life and getting to play in the Mission Impossible sandbox. I really don't know how most people feel about her, but I love and enjoy Haley Atwell, who was in these movies as Grace, who returns from the previous film Dead Reckoning. But my favorite character out of the new ones is probably Palm Clementoff's Paris from Dead Reckoning, who is just such an absolutely fun character, and she seems like she's having a blast in these films. Speaking of characters, probably the weakest link in Final Reckoning is Asai Morales' Gabriel, who I never really feel lives up to the villain that he should have been in these two movies. He falls into a lot of obvious mustache-twirling villainish tropes, and isn't the epic match that Ethan Hunt deserves, especially as someone who is considered his rival, or the man who started everything. While the Entity is a fascinating concept on paper, I don't think this film does enough with the premise and really takes its foot off the gas, as opposed to Dead Reckoning, which I think was actually setting up some really interesting stuff with the concept of rogue AI. There could have been some really great talking points in this film that left audiences really thinking when they left the theater if Cruz really decided to lean heavily into the rogue AI versus humanity. But we never really do anything with it that's just beyond surface level. And that's kind of disappointing, because there was a really fun setup there to see Mr. Movies take on rogue AI. But what this movie lacks in depth, it definitely makes up for in spectacle, with each act feeling like it's filled to the brim with action set pieces. Cruz especially has 2 pretty insane stunt sequences in this movie, one aquatic in nature and one aerial stunt that had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I mean, say what you want about Tom Cruise, but this man knows how to make you feel something. And the last 30 minutes of Final Reckoning will make you feel alive. I mean, the plane stunt in this movie is fantastic, and it's shot amazingly. Tom Cruise is giving it his all, and it really shows on screen. While the title would have you think this is the last Mission Impossible film, there's no real sense of finality. The film honors every film that came before it, but there is nothing inside that felt narratively satisfying to call this an ending. If this is Cruz's last mission, you aren't left wanting closure, but there is no real sense of completion either. It's weird because the movie doesn't even feel like it ever really begins or ever really ends. It's structured very weird in that way. It takes the baton straight from Dead Reckoning and kind of just runs with it. And before we know it, we're already fully immersed into the movie itself. All that's left to do is rate this film, and on a scale of 1 to 5 Tom Cruises, because what else am I going to rate this movie on? Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is a solid 3 out of 5 Cruzes. Listen, to be honest, if we were really being super critical of the film, it's definitely more of a 2.5 out of 5. But to me, the action sequences really make up for it. And that final 30 minutes of the movie was such a pleasure. It was worth the price of admission alone. So for that, we're giving it 3 out of 5. Like I said, if you guys are fans of the Mission Impossible films, I highly recommend you checking this one out because it definitely will live up to all the expectations that you have. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more or on the side of one of the better iterations of this franchise, this is not it. It's by no means the absolute worst when it comes to cinematic appeal, but it is in no way the best either. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you want to check out our other reviews, click the link on the page. And until next time, guys, stay versed.